Welcome back to another episode of Out of Bounds. This is episode 21, and today we have two really amazing guests. I'll tell you more about them in a sec. Let's roll that intro. Welcome back to another episode. I already said that. Today we have Charles Mruz and Jimmy Nguyen. These guys are amazing. They're the executive producer and the director of an incredible documentary called Gamemaster. It's on Amazon Prime for free and on just basically anywhere else that you can find videos. They're great. Let's get started, shall we? Welcome back to another episode of Out of Bounds. I'm your host, Danell Leyva. This is episode something. I just said it in the intro. I don't know what it is just yet. But these two guys are amazing filmmakers. I'm going to let you guys say your names because I don't want to butcher it. And then I'll say it afterwards. So please, if you can introduce yourselves.
Charles, you can go first.
I can go first. Well, my name is Charles Mruz. There's no way you would have gotten that right. So many people get it wrong that the incorrect pronunciation is now the accepted, amongst my brain. I don't even correct people anymore. But yeah, Charles Mruz, I'm the director of Gamemaster.
And I am Jimmy Nguyen, the executive producer.
Yeah, I definitely would have said like Mruz, and then Nguyen. I've heard that
There's a couple different variations of it that is pretty acceptable, but I'll tell you what, when I was growing up, I probably went through two different variations, and in my adult life, I've settled on Jimmy Nguyen.
Of course, people of color, when we interact with other people that don't have similar names, they look at our names and they're just like, how do you... So,
well, I'll tell you, ironically, my last name is actually a white last name. It is Polish because my father is Polish and I was adopted. So while I am a full person of color, my last name is that of a full white person.
Well, that's amazing. Did not expect that. Well, that's really cool. So we're here to talk a little bit about your movie, Gamemaster. It is an amazing movie. I have so many notes. I have so many things I want to talk about already. But tell me, how did the idea of actually making this movie, and I know you've already answered this question a million times, I'm sure, but what was the idea? How was it born, and then how did you guys make it happen?
So the short answer is we play a lot of games, and we're both just extreme people. So we just said, how do we take this love of board gaming to the next level? And 5, 6, 7, 15 steps down the line, the next step was making a movie, and we may have taken it too far. I don't know, but that's the short version. Jimmy, what's the long version?
I had just finished doing a coffee competition documentary back in 2016. And I had swore to Charles and many of my friends that I probably wasn't going to make another documentary because they just eat up so much time, And I was pretty exhausted from making that and then my previous documentary, Showrunners, because those overlapped each other. And together they took about 5 years of my life. And so I was kind of done with it. And I was really excited to kind of make normal movies. And I think one of the ways I dealt with kind of... this post-second documentary life of mine was just to throw myself into board games. I was pretty burnt out on just production and stuff like that. And while I think a year into hardcore gaming at conventions, because me and Charles, we started off playing Catan competitively. And, I would go to these conventions, and these are conventions that there are no commercials for. You kind of just have to know somebody that's gone and then look it up and then go to it, right? But Strategicon at the Hilton happens 3 times a year. I had never heard of it. And if it wasn't for this one friend that I had in San Diego who would drive up to LA and go do it, I would have never known about it. So when we were kind of getting deep into board games, I told all my friends, Charles and the other people we play with, hey, let's go to this convention and let's just see what it's about. And we got so obsessed with it, we would get a hotel room. Even though we all live in LA, even though it takes place in LA, we would get a hotel room in the hotel that it took place in. We would stay overnight for 4 days and just nonstop play. So obviously we got really addicted, really deep into it. And a year into it, I looked at Charles. I was like, man, I think there's a movie here, because it's such a fascinating world. There's people that fly in from all over the country. I know it's bigger than this, but this feels really gigantic to me right now. And so I think I joked about it for another like couple months. And then like the eureka moment that happened to us was I had gotten up to go to the bathroom, and on the way I had found these guys who were selling their own board games. They had made it at their house, and they had made multiple copies, and they just had this like loving pitch for it. And it moved me. It got me. And I spent $20 on it. And like, we never played it, but I bought it, and it's just like in that moment, I felt like this is something. I'm like, this is the movie. I think I figured it out,
You literally, you were like, wow, this is it. This is what...
Yeah, and I was like, I would love to follow somebody, prototyping, brainstorming, trying to make a game, trying to get it on a Target shelf. Just follow that whole journey. Like, that would be really exciting. And it's very similar to the previous documentaries I had done, because it's just like a journey to make something, And this is kind of like the thing that attracts me to the type of documentaries I want to make. Is like, I love creative people, and I love seeing kind of like the passion, unfold.
Dude,
so
same.
Yeah, I had pitched it to Charles, and he's like, that's a great idea. He goes, who's going to direct it? And I'm like, you. You should do it. You're like my partner in crime in all this. And
I
and
was
like,
surprised too. I was just as surprised as you were. But no, I mean, upon immediately hearing it, I knew that it was the right answer. I said there wasn't like a let me think about it moment. It was okay, let's go. Off to the races.
I mean, it happened really fast after that. I think at the next convention we started shooting. After thinking about it, like I went home, I called one of my friends who has, who've contributed money to my previous projects. I'm like, I need 10 grand. What do you think about this? Come on and be the EP for me. And he's like, okay. I called another person, and it's like, I need somebody to run production. Do you want to do this for me? And they're like, okay. I literally called all my friends who always wanted to work with me on stuff. They had kind of witnessed, on the edges, like all the other stuff I've been doing. And I was like, hey, just come join this one. I'm on fire with it. I think I have an idea. And we were kind of off to the races after that.
That's amazing. I do have to say, first of all, the movie in itself it's beautifully done. Like, honestly, one of my favorite parts about the movie, and I know it doesn't have anything to do with the movie, but it was actually the transitions. There was two that really stuck out, and it was at one point where, oh man, I can't remember her name right now.
Dashra?
Yeah, the creator of Arranged, where she's going into the subway station, or she's like by a train or whatever, and then it transitions into a board game about trains.
Trains.
Yeah.
That
Beautiful
was the first
transition.
I was like, wow, that's awesome. And then the other one that I thought was really, really interesting was with the Empire State Building. That it was like Empire State Building with the red, white, and blue lights, and then it transitions into the Empire State Building piece. And I was like, this is amazing.
So I knew beforehand which ones you were gonna say. I already knew.
Did you?
I knew, because it was I'll tell you, those were not planned in a way. It was just here's all of the pieces. It was me and the editor, and we were just kind of sitting down, and we're like, here's all the pieces, here's the kind of the segments, and this is the order that they should go in. And the editor kind of looks at me and says, I don't really know what we put in between these two things that don't go together. And I said, I know exactly what to put in between these two things that don't go together. Let me see if they work. And so we shot the board game about trains, and me and the DP shot the building pieces of the Empire State Building. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. Let's see it. We put it up in the camera, and we compared it against the actual shot of the Empire State Building, and we're like, I can't believe how well this works. It looked good. I knew immediately when I saw it in the camera before even getting to the edit. I was like, oh, this is going to work. This is going to be great.
I love those little moments. And by the way, spoilers for those who are listening. I'm going to try not to give too much away from the movie, because you really should watch it, because it's amazing. It really is truly capturing. There's a part where Charlie creator
Bink.
of Trekking.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Charlie Bink, yeah.
Charlie Bink, where he said, it's that moment where you can hold it in your hand and you say, I made this. Being an actor myself and a writer now, there are those moments where you can take a step back and you look at your own work and you're just like, wow, I made that. And I'm sure you had that exact moment with the camera where you were just like, as you were, like you said, as you were doing it, you were like, this is This is amazing.
You know, it's funny because with the pandemic and everything, and you know, we're all secluded into our own, you know, little cubbies, or at least we should be. You know, you know, there was never a moment for me, because there's been 0 public screenings so far.
Yep.
In some ways, it feels like a little bit strange. And I told Jimmy the other day, like about 2 weeks ago, I was like, man, I almost forgot I directed this thing, because it's like, you know, there was very little difference between 2 days before it came out and like a week later, because there was no parties, there was no screenings. You know, I have a nicer looking IMDb page, that's for sure. But it's an interesting time to have released a movie. I'll say that.
Right,
and,
absolutely.
And I have yet to hold a physical copy in my hand. Scott Rogers, who's in the movie, has one. Jimmy, you have one.
I have
right?
one, yeah.
I don't have
I bought
one.
it the moment it went on sale.
I did not buy one.
I don't even understand how that works, but all right. I'm just going to keep talking and singing the movie, the praises of the movie, because especially since you both said that you were such fans of the game, the Settlers of Catan, and then you guys got to meet and shoot with the creator of that game, right? Were both of you there, or was it just you?
No, I was there
Charles-
for the interview.
Yeah.
Got it.
And then I met him later on at Essen.
Yeah, at a convention, yeah. You know, he appeared and we saw him, and we all, you know, the people who were not present at the interview got to meet him at this convention.
That's
He was
to me-
number 1 on the list for us.
Right,
Like,
of course.
I made a list for Charles. I was like, these are all the people I want in this movie, and we almost got all of them.
That's to me one of the selfish reasons why I'm an actor and why I want to be in the film industry until the day that I die, because you can kind of get away with those moments of, like, not everybody can, just because you're like, oh yeah, we're just making a documentary about this, and we just happen to meet this guy that we're a super massive fan of because it's integral to the movie. That's fine, right? Yeah, let's just do it. How was that for you guys? How was it, like, meeting him?
So, you know, it's interesting, and I gotta kind of tell this story from the point of view of the other 3 people that were in the room when I did the interview, because I knew almost exactly what I was getting myself into. I kind of knew what type of person he was going to be, because I did a lot of heavy research and prepping for all these interviews on everybody. But the other 3 people, Wally Schross, who's a producer, the director of photography, Mike Cox, and Wally's wife, Kristen, they were all there. And they were like, this guy created Settlers of Catan. It's like the biggest board game, you know, in this, you know, of this kind. Like, what's this guy going to be like? Is he going to be arrogant? Is he going to be, you know, is he going to have a big ego? Is he going to be mean? You know, he kind of has a right to be, I guess. What's he going to be like? And we showed up. His son Benjamin greeted us, you know, who's a wonderful guy. He said, Klaus will be here in, you know, probably about 10 minutes. And through the door walked this old, sweet, grandfatherly figure who couldn't have been nicer than anything. And it really, I don't know where the other 3 of them got this idea from, but it completely, it was the opposite of what they thought he was going to be like, and they couldn't have loved him more.
I love those moments too, you know, where you're pleasantly surprised rather than the things that, you know, tend to happen every now and then, where you kind of really admire somebody and you hope and expect them to be like this really, really nice, genuine person, and then you meet them and you're just like, oh, that left a really poor taste in my mouth.
Oh yeah, he was just like a super cool guy. Me and the rest of the team met him at the convention where he was signing copies of Catan. He had this massive line on the floor. And so me and the other producer, Jennifer, we got in line, we waited, and then when we got to the front, he signed her a copy of Catan, and then I took a photo of them, and then we left the line. And then she's looking at the photo, and she's very unhappy with the photo. She's like, I don't look good in this one. Let's go back and take a So we went all the way back in line, waited, and then when he saw us again, he grabbed the Catan thinking he needed to sign it. And she's like, oh, no, you already signed this, and then took another picture.
I've actually had that happen to me before, where I was very fortunate, you know, that to have success as an athlete, and there were moments, especially, you know, after going to these like big competitions, where, you know, you get some fans or something, and they'll come up and they're like, oh, like, can't we take a picture? And you get the whole like, and they take the picture, and I could see that it's not good, and I'm just like, you want to check it? You want to Make sure that's good. But in a convention setting, it's very different because there's, as you said, a massive line of people. Again, I'm trying not to give too much away from the movie, but I do have to say one of my favorite quotes from the movie came from Rainer Knizia? Is that how you pronounce his name?
Reiner Knizia, yeah.
Reiner Knizia, where he said the worst thing you could do as a game designer, and honestly, you can interpret this in real life in an everyday setting as a creator. The worst thing you can do as a game designer is fall in love with one of your designs, which does not work. And it's that whole mentality of I put so much effort into it, it has to work, and I love that whole lost cause fallacy that he said about it. How much of that do you guys think went into certain shots or went into certain aspects of the movie that ultimately ended up on the cutting room floor?
This is an interesting question.
It's a good question.
It's an interesting question because there a handful of people got cut. Not many. We actually, relative to what I hear, the people that we shot versus how many people were in the movie, it's a very high percentage. But there was one person that we followed around for a while, and I had a feeling early on, like, I don't know if this person's going to work. I really don't know if this person's going to work. This is a gut feeling. I mean, we can keep following this person. And another producer, I'm not going to say who, was kind of like, I think we should because we've already gone this far, and we should see it through and see if this person makes it into the edit and see if it's going to edit well, and maybe it's all going to be fine when it's all done. And to be honest, I didn't know for sure that it would not. I had a feeling and I voiced it, and all it cost was a little bit of time and money, and maybe it would have worked out. We didn't know, but as it stands right now, that person is not in the documentary. It wasn't in the cards, and that's an example of exactly what you're talking about.
Was it more so? Do you think it was more so of a personality issue? Was it more so of, did it kind of mess with the tone of the entire movie, or is it something that you can't even really talk about?
One thing is it would have made the movie too fat. Another thing is that everybody has a very unique story. It's very pointed, and all the stories have a certain way of talking to each other, and her story didn't really talk with the other stories, and that's kind of what it breaks down to. Is like, are all of these characters, do they exist in the same space? Are they telling the same story without telling the same story? And there are people that I loved that I wished were in the movie that did not make it, and there's nothing on them. It's just sometimes it's the way things work out.
As you said, there's a lot that goes into a movie, and there's certain things and certain aspects that, unfortunately, it just does. If it doesn't mesh with the rest of it, it can make it very clunky, and that can ultimately be, even if it's something that initially seems so minuscule, can completely change the dynamic, and it can take your movie from being good to absolutely great. The only thing that I could relate to most of my followers, because right now I myself am in a transitional period where I'm trying to make people see that I'm very serious about being an actor, because they kind of only still see me as an athlete, even though I've been an actor and an artist for 4 years, which still a baby. But there was moments as an athlete that there were certain parts of my routine that I had, like, let's say one very specific skill that I was very passionate about, making sure that I had it in the routine so that when I got to the competition, I can like really show off or whatever it was. And it would make the routine clunky, or it would make it inconsistent, or it would just make it ugly. Crazy how that can literally apply to so many things, especially in the filmmaking aspect.
Yeah, I think, Charles did a great job just putting, synergizing everything. Like, I don't know how many times you've watched it, but I've watched it like 100 times now. And, every time I see a little bit more of the magic that Charles instilled in it, all the storylines, there's a lot of parallels, there's a lot of contrast. It's elegantly put together, and I think Charles made all the right editing choices and piecing it together, because it just works better, and I think everybody who's creative, they need to understand that you don't just jam pack things just so you can have a lot of it. You just have to find ways how it pieces together like a nice, beautiful puzzle. So yeah, I mean, he did a great job, and I had a lot of debates with Charles on what to keep, what to take out, and I think in the end he made all the right decisions.
I'll say this: this is a clean podcast or no?
No.
No, okay. So there was one day in editing where Jimmy and myself. And first of all, with all the editing choices, I have to say that, John Barry deserves as much credit, who's the editor, as much credit as I do with a lot of the choices, because it was a lot of, he and I were definitely on the same page philosophically, and that took a lot of work to get in sync with each other. And I feel like by the time we even made the first cut, we were, But there was a day where Jimmy, was telling me all the things that he wanted in the movie, right? He's like, I want this in the movie, I want this in the movie, we should have this, we should have this. And this was deep into the editing process. We gotta have this, we gotta have this. And then he said, oh, and by the way, it should be 90 minutes long. And actually, it was after he left, and he texted me, by the way, this should be 90 minutes. And I was like, this fucking guy. I was still in the editing room. I said, this fucking guy. And all I did was text Jimmy back a picture of a wizard.
I said, good, thanks. I'm glad we're on the same page.
Oh, my goodness.
So, and John and I threw our hands up like, what the fuck is this guy?
How long were you guys making this movie? Because, I mean, clearly, there's a lot of scenes in the movie where you can tell that it is absolutely pre-COVID. Because
100%.
Yeah, it was all pre-COVID.
That massive crowd in, what was it, Gen Con?
Gen Con,
literally just like, oh my God. Mm-hmm. First of all, so much anxiety, just like watching it.
Yeah.
I can't
People look
imagine.
at it differently now.
So how long? When did you guys start filming the movie?
2016?
Maybe later. Maybe that's right. Maybe summer of 2016?
Because Barista came out at the end of 2015, and then we went to our first Strategic Con that spring.
Is that right?
2016.
Jerry Bennington of IDW was our first interview, and that happened in July. And I don't remember what year.
Yeah, that sounds right, because that July of 2016?
It was 2.5 to 3.5 years. Not 100% sure. We'd have to go look up the dates.
I mean, there was a lot of, dead air,
For sure.
in between, just all documentary stuff. But I think post was a year, right?
Maybe?
On and off?
So it's a blur because, I'm pretty sure I shot 1 or 2 shots, a week before we locked. So it's shooting was... The main bulk of the shooting happened in the span of a year and a half.
2017.
That's where 80% of the shooting happened. And then the following year it's we need this, we need get more footage of this person or that person, and it was a lot clearer, and we could kind of thread the needle a little bit more about what we were missing. And so we were shooting it's not constant shooting, it all happens in fits and starts.
You guys mentioned earlier about having different characters. I have to be honest, Scott Rogers, he looks like a cartoon character. He looks like a fake person.
It's because we drew him at the beginning of the movie.
No, but even he looks more he looks more like
he's
a
very animated guy. Yeah.
But the eyebrows, his just his expressions and everything about him is even more cartoonish than the initial animation at the start of the movie, if that makes sense. It's amazing. I really enjoyed following his story. His story was a great one. Obviously, it seemed to be one of the main themes of the movie. I enjoyed also, I can't believe I forgot her name again. Oh my God, I'm a worse.
Dasha.
Her story, I loved it. I really loved it. I do have to say though, especially being a Hispanic person, Jason Serrata and his game, that is certainly a bit of a think piece in itself, because it's coming from somebody who was literally part of that culture. It's coming from somebody of color. It's coming from somebody who understands that. But then at the same time, it's just, it makes you go ugh, is this okay?
It's definitely a challenging narrative. But we felt it was very important to have it because,
absolutely.
I think there's a lot of these similar conversations in other cultures as well, especially in the Asian culture. I mean, there's a lot of infighting on how, as a community, we should present ourselves. There's a lot of discussions about that within Chinese, Koreans, I'm Vietnamese. And I get a lot of that in the Vietnamese culture as well. It's how do you present yourself? How do you be authentic? How do you be true to yourself? And so I really like Jason's story a lot, because I definitely connected to what he was feeling. I definitely have come across a lot of Vietnamese people who were doing their own version of gatekeeping with the culture and how it should be presented. But it is challenging. It is difficult. And, and I think that's something that there's a lot of discussion about. We really wanted Jason to kind of share it from his perspective. I think it's a powerful story. It's definitely an ongoing discussion. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, I think it was an amazing addition for sure, because it literally makes you, and especially even like the sort of people who will decide to get angry about everything. I try to always be a voice, and especially for social issues, I'm like constantly trying to check people or check myself or hold people accountable and things like that. And even for a person who tries to always nitpick on everything, as you guys added, some of the people who left comments, even for them, they watch this movie and they see this guy, and it's almost like a,
Yeah.
like you can't even, like, what am I supposed? Is it culture appropriation? Like, it's not, because he's literally.
Yeah.
You know?
It's challenging. I mean, that's what I love about Nashra and Jason's story, because they're both rebels within their culture, and it's like, who's to say how they should live their lives, how they should present themselves authentically. I think it makes the film a lot more important. And these are things that me and Charles and the other producers, we had a lot of discussions about how hard we were going to do it, if we were going to hold anything back. I mean, I'm sure Charles and John Barry had a lot of discussions on how they should present things.
But, at the end of the day, who's anybody to say to any individual, regardless of who they are, where they come from, that you cannot express yourself in this manner artistically?
Absolutely.
The only thing that people can do, and the only thing they should be allowed to do, is to not patronize that person, and let them speak about how they feel about that way. And if enough people don't like it, then that person's going to stop doing it. Both of those games very much came from within themselves, and that was something that, that struck a chord. In fact, all four games did. Of the designers we follow, all of those games came from within them, and it's an artistic expression of themselves, and that played a big part in choosing who to put in and who to follow.
I really loved listening to, I don't know what his position is. His name was Alex Yeager.
Alex Yeager. He used to be the vice president for Mayfair, and Mayfair has since gone out of business. But I know that he works somewhere else. I know he's got a similar position at another company. I forget which one.
I really loved hearing his side of it, because, especially as what I like to call myself, a filmmaker, as a writer and stuff, like I wrote a movie last year, and I did the thing. I went through a couple different drafts. I finally got it down to like a draft that I was comfortable enough to show people. And hearing him talking about how he needs to be the person to be very nitpicky about all these little things, because, as you said, out of like 500 potentials, there's like 4 that they choose, and that's the board game industry, which, seems to be not as like competitive as the actual filmmaking industry. Like, I'm sure you guys have had so much experience with, probably even with this movie, where you weren't even really ready to present it until you knew that it was ready. And even then, you probably still had some people that they were very nitpicky and like, this is not going to work because of X and Y reason. What were like kind of some of the biggest struggles that you guys had to deal with? And like, how did you get over it? And how did you actually make this movie happen?
Oh man, there's so many stories, but to go back on what you just said, I mean, literally there were moments where we had investors that wanted to help fund our movie, and they wanted to see a cut of it, and the cuts weren't ready, but they wanted to see it if they were going to put money in it, and we sent them something that wasn't ready, and then they decided not to give us money. And that happened a handful of times, and it's very frustrating.
Yeah, if the cut was ready, we wouldn't need the money.
Yeah, it's like you get caught up in like a ton of different catch-22s, because they're
Absolutely.
like, they want to see a finished good product, but if we were already there, we wouldn't need money.
We wouldn't be pitching the idea.
Yeah, so, we spent a lot of time begging people for money, meeting with investors. I remember one of our producers found an investor from China that was like looking for filmmakers at Sundance, on the streets of Sundance. She was trying to find filmmakers to give money to.
Wow.
And so we literally, one of the producers texted us like, meet us here. You got to get ready to pitch to this woman. And we're like, okay. So like we all ran and we all like pitched for an hour, and it felt amazing. Like, we felt like, oh, we did it. We got it, right? And I think at that time, we only had a trailer. We had, like, shot a couple interviews. We just had a trailer. I don't think we sent her the full movie. But we sent her our sizzle reel. And she passed. And that was it. It was just, like, a lot of, and we went through a lot of these type of emotional roller coasters on that. Just like, but like for the people that did give us money, I mean, it was really great because they were along for the ride, you know, to watch me, and they were very patient because it takes a long time to make a documentary. One of our producers, man, he found so much money, and it was really great to like that he got people to believe in us. It was just really cool. But yeah, there was a lot of times when we got denied a lot all along the way. But I think the people who stuck by us were the right people. So that's on the financial side. Charles could probably talk to the
I
stuff.
I'll say I don't know anything about the financial side because Wally Schross very wisely kept all of that information from me. He actually said, "I'm not telling you." He said to me, "I'm not telling you some of this stuff," because he knew that if I knew everything, my head would explode. And so he's like, "I don't. You need to worry about making this movie, and I'll figure this other stuff out." So I don't know a lot of those stories.
Oh, there's another story I'll share. Charles knows this story now, but so there was a point in the trip where Charles went to go shoot at Gen Con. It was like Charles, Mike, the DP, Wally. I think Kristen was on that trip. I don't know. But
Kristen was not on the trip.
Okay, so they packed up a van and they drove out east to shoot Gen Con, Hasbro, a couple other places along the East Coast. And halfway through that trip, Wally calls me and he goes, "I need money to keep this trip going, and if we don't get it, we have to turn around and come home." And I was like, "Okay, how much money do you need? Okay, how soon do you need it? A week? Okay." So literally, I just scrambled over here, you know?
Wow.
And we raised the money, and we kept those guys on the road, and that was really, really important because on that very same trip, Charles found Nashra.
Now, when we left Los Angeles to go cross country to shoot, I did not know Nashra personally. I did not even know who she was, and she was not going to be in the movie. And then through a lot of circumstance, we discovered her on the road. She happened to be probably when I found out who she was and got her on the phone. We were in Connecticut and she was in Brooklyn. She was only going to be there for another 2 days before she left the country. So we got down to Brooklyn and we shot her. And in so many ways, none of this should have happened.
And I love the that's the other thing, you know. These are the moments that also make me fall in love with filmmaking, because through the magic of editing and obviously like proper filmmaking, it seems like you guys had days and days and days with Nashra. You had like a day.
I feel like, how much did we have? I had like probably about 2, maybe.
Yeah, but like, you know, you guys made it seem like you did so much. I really enjoyed her story a lot, you know?
Oh yeah, she's definitely the rock star of that movie.
Absolutely. I do have a question for you guys, and this might be a little dicey, but I have to bring it up because you guys brought it up in your movie.
All right.
When the creator of Trekking, when he was speaking about how the relationship changed between him and his family, how much of that, well, I guess it might be a little bit different for documentary making, but how much or maybe not even this movie, maybe in a different filmmaking process, how much of it did you guys feel that in any sort of capacity in the middle of creating any sort of film?
There was a day that we went to Phoenix. We shot Charlie actually like 3 to 4 times, 3 to 4 separate trips where we maybe shot him 1 or 2 days at a time. So we had actually quite a bit more time with Charlie than, you know, in relation to like relative to Nashra. But there was it was on the same trip. We were driving through Phoenix because, you know, you're in LA. You got to get anywhere east. You got to go through Arizona. So I might as well make a stop. We were supposed to shoot Charlie's parents, but Charlie was just like, "This is not going to happen today," because there was a big fight. I don't know what it was about, but they had a disagreement, and he just said, "You know, we're not shooting my parents today. This is just, it's not a good day. We'll figure it out later," you know? So we just shot him, and then we figured the rest out later. So more than anybody, Charlie's story developed as we were shooting, and all of that stuff was kind of happening in real time. Like, I did not know how Charlie's story was going to end, nor did I know when it was actually the end. I thought it was the end like 3 times, and more stuff started happening.
There was definitely an ending to the arc we had initially presented that I hated. I was telling Charles, I was like, "I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know if this is the right ending for this guy.
Right.
You
So
know?
Charlie might have even ended up on the cutting room floor before more things
I don't know if Charlie would have, because I and it's that same, it's in my gut. I knew that there was a version where he was great, because I just, watching the raw footage, sometimes you just know, sometimes you can just tell, and we got it right at the end of the day. That's what matters.
One of the last things, I mean, it was one of the last things of the movie as well, but it was so important to watch the creator of is it King Domino, right? Bruno Cathala. What he said about leaving a legacy. I feel, first of all, I absolutely related to that. I was like so emotional in that scene. It is, I feel like that might be something that most, if not all, creatives kind of have within, right? And it's something that all of us, and especially like filmmakers, we always want to leave some sort of legacy. Do you guys think, for now, that this might be your legacy? And to go off of your point earlier, Charles, how much of it do you think has that perspective been altered because of this year and the circumstances of 2020?
The answer is no. I don't think it will be my legacy, because that would mean that I wouldn't be doing any future work. If this was it, then we could pack it up and go home. But no, I think it's part of the legacy for sure, but it's not all of it, because there's hopefully much more to come. Just like you do, I relate to the statements a lot. There's actually a book that I'm reminded of by Dr. Ernst Becker called The Denial of Death. I think it was written in the 70s, maybe the 60s. It's philosophy, psychology book. It's amazing. I read it a long time ago and it blew my mind, but a lot of it was talking about how we all search for a way to essentially live forever through what we leave behind, and the work we do.
I think that's perfect, because I was literally going to say, as filmmakers, as you said, we don't ever stop on just this one thing. If we make a good movie or make a good project, we're just like, cool, on to the next one. And as you said, we want it to be part of the legacy. And it's exactly what, can't remember what his name is, the creator of Citadels, where he was talking about Bruno, and he says, he can stop if he wants to. I know he won't, but he can if he wants to. And I feel like that rings true for any successful, I guess, person, really. It's that moment and that feeling of like, great, we did the thing and we can stop if we want to, but now is when we have more motivation to keep going and keep persevering for higher.
Yeah, I love the Bruno Cathala part. It definitely, everybody always texts me when they get to that part and they're like, oh man, I think my eyes are teary. It just really moves them, because what I like about our movie is that it really catches people off guard. Like, they think they're just going to watch this fun board game movie, which it definitely is that. But,
yeah.
you get into these deeper discussions about, being a creative and making something, and race and culture and your impact on the world and what you leave. I mean, it's such a nice button to end on, because, that part happens near the end as we're kind of wrapping up everybody's arc, and it's a very beautiful moment.
I'll be honest, watching that movie, even though it has nothing to do with what I envision myself in my career, it gave me so much motivation, and it gave me so much more drive to keep pursuing the thing that I want to pursue. It gave me more energy to want to jump back into my script and continue to rework it until it's absolutely undeniable. And that's thanks to the amazing filmmaking that you guys did.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hopefully at this point now, I'm gonna cross all the things. We can work on something. We can work on something together.
Oh, 100%.
That would be awesome.
That's the goal. We're all gonna be making films for the next 30 years. We're all gonna make stuff together. That's the dream.
Do you guys focus mainly on documentaries, or Jimmy? I know that you said you wanted to do more nonfiction stuff.
Me and Charles, we started a production company together during quarantine, so we have a lot of plans. It's still early now, but a lot of plans to try to make real features, get Charles' directorial debut off the ground next year. There's a couple things in the fire. I told myself I'd never make another documentary again after this, but I'll probably make another one. I think I just have all this knowledge in my head that I know how to do it, so I might as well just utilize it. Except try to bring new friends into the group.
Sure.
I think outside of Jennifer. everybody that worked on our team, this was their first film. So that, I like want to mentor my friends. I want to help them out, like it's nice to have done this, with Charles, and now Charles is ready to make, more stuff. So, that's, I just like working with my friends and trying to bring them in and teach them everything I know.
One last thing. If you guys had a specific genre, like a dream genre that you guys would want to make a movie, what would it be?
Jimmy?
Dream genre, man, this is...
I mean, why should you have to think about this? I think I know what your answer is.
I mean, look, I grew up watching a lot of, like, action movies, so, like, I mean, if I could make my own kung fu movie, I would do it. I would love to make, like, I don't know...
You want to reboot American Ninja Warrior or
American Ninja?
American Ninja, not American Ninja Warrior. You want to reboot that?
I grew up, because I grew up in the 80s, I loved ninjas. So, yeah, sure, I would definitely love to make a ninja movie. I mean, I really love, action stuff, sci-fi stuff. There's a lot of really great films that are being made right now. I mean, I love superhero movies. I would love to make a superhero movie one day. I mean, I don't know if I could pick just one, but I guess if I had to, I'd probably do a superhero movie.
I really love adventure, sci-fi, comedy type stuff. It's funny because with the success of like Guardians of the Galaxy, I think a lot of the Marvel films are kind of geared towards that. But even like stuff like Army of Darkness and Time Bandits and all those old like. It's kind of funny. It's humorous. We're all having a good time. We're going on an adventure. Maybe it's in space. Maybe it's in the woods. I don't know. That stuff I love.
Yeah, literally similar to both of you guys. I love the action genre. I love the comedic genre. Like that's kind of what my movie's about. So hopefully we'll see. You guys, thank you so much for being a part of this. Honestly, I'm incredibly honored. I can't wait for this movie to like truly blow up and for everybody to be talking about it.
Yeah, us too.
I think it will. It's a really, really amazing movie. Thank you so much. This has been episode whatever of Out of Bounds. Next week, we're going to talk about something also fun and important, whatever.
Well, hold on a second. Wait, hold on a second. We have to say that the movie is available. The movie's available on Amazon Prime for free.
Absolutely. If
you're a Prime member. If you're not for some reason, it's available on iTunes for rent or purchase. Basically, all of the media places, like what is it on Vimeo still? Vimeo.
Yeah, Vimeo everywhere.
Yeah, you can get it on your PlayStation if your Xbox.
YouTube.
It's available. Whatever you watch videos on, just put it in the Google, put it in the search bar, and it'll come up.
I totally forgot to do the last plug, but yeah, it's on Amazon Prime. if you're a Prime
that's the only reason we're here.
That's the only reason you guys are here, and I totally forgot about it. Definitely, I highly recommend it. Go watch the movie. I give it 27 stars out of 5. Go watch the movie and come back next week and keep watching this podcast. And then look out for Jimmy and Charles' next project, whatever that may be. Hopefully, it'll be my next project too. Woo! All right, guys. Peace.